Well, and I think with the Super Pool Pass, we even saw it more. Because what we realized is when we did the Super Pool Pass, the number of people that are using our pool are,
I can't believe they let us participate.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
seriously,
that's
nobody
true.
came here. Everybody went someplace else.
Yeah.
That's
What about
true.
Fairway?
The
like
Fairway has some pretty nice
Fairway has a
pools.
nice pool.
Yeah.
They do.
They've got a nice
They have two
pool over
nice
there.
pools.
Nice
They're nicer than ours.
Prairie Village is the one that really picked up a lot of
We've got,
our population.
and just for our summer program to be able to participate in swimming activities, there's the Merriam Pool, there is the Roland Park Pool, there's the Fairway Pool, there's the Shawnee's Pool, Prairie Village Pool.
Leeward.
Well, I don't know if we need to go that far
They're part of
out.
But they
program.
participated.
But they're
Yeah, they're
part of our
106th
Super
and
Bowl
Lee.
Pass.
But, I mean,
Got a lot of options.
in all reality, if we were to save money, it would be with that, and I would even suggest doing it this year, before we even hire the staff necessary, and, you know, before we come across the needed repairs that need to be done in order to get it fired up and ready. Maybe we can save on, get a kickback from insurance as well, a rebate, because we wouldn't be utilizing it. There's a lot of savings there, personnel.
I mean, the one thing that I think of when I watch Prairie Village talk about building a community center, and now I think the construction number is over 20 million to build it, knowing that, understand that you'll never be able to pay for it. What's the impact in our community center? And, you know, part of me says, shouldn't the discussion be sort of like, hey, Prairie Village, especially for your northern residents, you know, maybe you can do something for some that are south of, let's say, 83rd, I don't know. But what if we gave up our pool and you gave up the Chase for the community center, and we gave you residential rates to use our community center for Prairie Village residents, and you gave us residential rates to use the Prairie Village pool?
That's the kind of things we need to start.
And then all of a sudden, that expense that we have goes away. And we
Right.
probably pick up more members, and what we lose in terms of what we collect in fees offsets, but those members participate in more programs. And then we come out much better than probably Prairie Village does, but in the case of Prairie Village, maybe they do. Maybe they avoid 20
We may
million.
come out better more year-round.
Right.
But my guess is they would see a more significant spike during a 2-month term.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, my guess is it would even out over time.
Yeah.
But
I support having that dialogue, Will.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would, if it was me, I think I would probably crunch some numbers in the next week so that we could have a decision made pretty quick. If the council is interested in going
Right.
forward and making that decision.
I wholly support the idea. It's, from what I understand, it's too late for this year. We've got our local agreement that already commits us to opening our pool, or else we're no longer a part of it. We've already put money into that pool this month. I believe a lot of the hiring process already started. I know that Jim Montemayor wanted to have the pool filled by water by May 1st. He's not going to make that date, but all those motions are in place. But what I would suggest is, as we start the budget cycle for 2012, we go into this budget cycle knowing that next year, we're not sitting here again saying, well, why are we opening another damn pool again this
And
year?
to add to that, I also know that in addition to interlocal, and I support with what you're saying, but there are others that are now contracted and dependent on us. For example, St. Michael's Day School, they run their preschool, they run their program every
Swim team.
Wednesday.
Our
Every
summer
Wednesday,
program.
every Wednesday they're here. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
um,
And the other
Swim team
thing
sign-up has already
that we need to
occurred.
include is the mayor in this discussion.
Well,
Oh, absolutely.
She's not part of any of the other discussions, so
the problem we have is, I mean, yeah, it's,
She wants me to-
and that's where I want, and I don't mean to cut
sure
off
she's gonna
Debbie's
wanna
time,
keep
but I
it
just want to
open,
pull my
but-
hair out because, you know, I'm hearing about, as I make notes, and I'm hearing a lot of agreement around this table. I'm hearing Dave talk about Parks and Rec budgets bleeding us too much. I'm hearing Sue make comments about the community center and where's the county and potentially helping us. I'm hearing Connie talking about shared services. I'm hearing Will talk about the pool. And I couldn't agree with every one of you more. I have confidence that if take the community center. If we went to the county and said, let's talk about the community center, they would sit down and listen. But we, so far, have not been able to go to them and ask them to engage in us. On the pool, I have confidence that we can find ways to not open the pool every year and bleed that money. But we haven't shown the necessity, the strength to do that. And you go up and down our budget, and I just want to pull my hair out because we aren't showing the strength and the backbone to look at these hard things. Will start off his comments by saying, it's going to be unpopular, but we need to look at this pool. I couldn't agree with Will's logic more, and apply that to every aspect of our budget.
Even if we do have, daycare, school, whatever, that is planning on using our pool, sometimes you just gotta say, I'm sorry, we can't do it.
We don't have the money.
And it's unpopular, and,
Yeah.
we might be the bad guys, but, hey, business is business, and you can't keep fixing that car only to get it, another 100 miles down the road. You just can't do it. You have to just set it on fire on the side of the road and use your legs for walking, or get a bicycle or something. But, yeah, maybe I'm just, codger or whatever, just mean-spirited, but, if I had to go to St. Anne's or whatever it is and say, I'm sorry, we have decided not to open up the pool this year, there it is.
So Debbie, you're last.
Yeah, well,
So-
I got a list.
She said time to plan.
Yeah, I am. I think we get to this virtually, even though it hasn't gotten to this degree economically, we get to this almost every year that we're trying to look at things. And the first thing I heard you say was 65% is in people, not necessarily services, but people. That means either people that we're employing that are costing us through some level of insurance or some level of filling behind them and things of that nature. So the first thing, I'm a visual person, I need to see a matrix of how many people we currently have, where we're lapsing full-time equivalencies, where we could potentially use a part-time person in lieu of a full-time person for health benefits. I need to see those things. I'd like to see every department head come through with some recommendations for what they plan to do to cut back on the people, because the people is the number one thing we're looking at. I don't want to get rid of anybody. I don't want to cut anybody or any program if we don't have to. But I need numbers, I need people, I need lapsing. I need to see those things to collectively make a decision and to look at this.
I would kind of stop you right there. What you have to go after is what we'll identify. You have to go after large programmatic expenditures.
I don't disagree, but
'Cause
I
if-
have ideas, and I've mentioned everything is, there's a couple people that keep saying, well, that's just minuscule. If you don't start with the little things, you're never going to get to the big things. I don't disagree. I've got other things on that level. But I'd like to see some figures, and I'd like to see where the departments individually think they could either give up, sacrifice, or whatever. I feel bad enough that we're not able to give raises or anything, cost of living or anything. So, that's a hard draw, but I think we've got to look at that, and I'd like to see some numbers. I'd consider analyzing some of the programs at the community center where we have instructors. If we are paying an instructor X amount per hour and we only have one person show up, we need to look collectively and comprehensively at the programs we're offering and what times a day we're doing it. Maybe we're not getting the draw on people, and it's costing us more to have the programs conducted than it would to have somebody renting the room for another purpose.
Yeah, but
Well,
the
but
easier way
it's
to do
an
that,
easy- the programs
easier way
are-
is the way we've approached it, which is we tell Christy, you have to be 75%, you have to hit the 75% number. How you hit the 75% number, we don't
Over
care.
what period of time?
A year.
80%. It's actually
80. On an annual basis, you have to make 80% of your budget.
And I think she's even gone above 80% typically.
Because the problem when you get in trying to manage individual programs and instructors, what you sometimes forget is that you're going to have loss leaders at times, and you simply do them so that people know that that's an option. And then other times those loss leaders become the leaders. So you might lose money for a while, but then you might gain it. So I'd be cautious.
Just a suggestion. I
Yeah.
don't know where we're getting
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah.
We're a governing body. I don't know every detail, and I feel compelled to start asking exactly Where could we give? We need more revenue sources in this community. That's one of the biggies, whether it be as a result of closing something or opening something else out. I would like to look at some of the events that take place, although it costs city resources in people's time and things like that. Are we gaining from the things that Susan puts on? Because if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have all these things going. And that is a spirit in this community that I would never want to see cease. Those are the kind of things to me that I think keep things going on a positive level, just emotionally for the community. You know, this is going to sound way outside the box, so bear with me. It doesn't have to be put in a budget. I think, and I honestly, in all sincerity, plan on doing this. There are physicians, there are lawyers, there are all kinds of professional people in this community. Some of them are alone. I wouldn't even mind if they considered putting something in their will to have something given back to this community. My kids grew up here. I have a special ed son. If it wouldn't have been for that swim team and this community, my son would not be the person he is today. You think I'm not going to give something back to this community? I plan on it. Maybe nobody likes it. Maybe it's a stupid idea. But I guarantee you, the Columbacks would be given back to this community. They do it all the time. We do it to church. Why not do it to a community that helped your children become the people they are today? That's an outside the box concept, but I think we need to look at sources of
No,
revenue.
Debbie, I think
I
you're
know other
right.
cities that have done it. It's called a community chest.
Or a foundation, or a legacy, or any kind of...
Yeah.
Cool idea.
We need to look at where we have grant opportunities that aren't getting consideration. I know the federal government's cutting back on grants, working for the federal government, I know. But some of those grants on an environmental level are still out there. They may be 10,000, they may be 15,000, but we need to keep going with the grants because you guys have done phenomenal work with that in the past. I think it's prudent that we keep looking at grant opportunities, whether it be at the state level, but primarily the federal level, to see what we can do. How many of the paid services we currently have could be done by volunteers?
Almost all of them that relate to the MCDD are done by volunteers.
But that's a perfect example of how it's worked, right?
Yeah, but I mean, things that you're not really ever going to do, public safety, probably not. Public works, typically not, simply because of the training and the work comp liabilities and other liabilities that you address. So then I mean, we just don't have that many services.
And could we get a matrix that shows currently all the contractual services we have and where they're contracted to?
Yeah.
Whether it be a paid vendor or whether it be to Johnson County or to another city?
Right.
That would be really helpful,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Done.
You know, if you think back to personnel and you go back on the subject of shared services, you know, again, my brain can't help but wonder if you take the Northeast, Johnson County, you know, that's approximately 40,000, give or take, people in the community. You know, that's roughly slightly bigger, I think, or in the neighborhood of Lenexa, Shawnee, Leawood, you know, you're kind of in that middle there. But I can't help but wonder if you just take the four biggest cities, Roland Park, Fairway, Mission, and Prairie Village, and you've got 4 city administrators, you've got 4 police chiefs, you've got 2 planning directors, I think, correct? One. Well, I consider Dennis still a planning director in Prairie Village. Okay. So maybe you have 1. You know, some of these positions are just, to me, and how many public works directors do you have? I mean, there's 4 there. You know, there's
3.
just, what?
Now it's 3.
Well, Tim, you know, and then that just frustrates me more, is, you know, you see Mission turn over a police chief, Mission turn over a public works director, Roland Park turn over a city administrator. Now Fairway is turning over a police chief. And over again, yet there is no formal conversations on how we can work together. And I'm just asking, you know, around this table, there's clearly leadership and desire to engage. Yet, we sit here and we have the same conversation, and it's frustrating to me that we all seem stuck in this room, and we can't get outside of this room to engage our other communities. We need to do that. And
Absolutely.
it just takes a matter of asking people, and we haven't done that.
I think it's asking, but I think there's also a lot of convincing. I mean, I think today's article from Rose hit it on the head. I mean, if you look at the objections that those chiefs had to why they weren't participating in the 911 call center, I mean, there weren't any reasons there weren't any objections there that couldn't have been addressed, right?
Correct.
It's just the
And I'm not-
convincing them. So I'm not
Yeah, we're on
disagreeing
the
with
same
you.
page, Dave.
But I'm just saying, we have to do more than ask. We have to then do some selling and
Agreed.
convincing in order to bring them to the.
But you can't sell and convince until you ask first. And even if you ask on 8 different areas, you may only get a yes on 3 or 4. I'm fine with that ratio. What I'm not fine with is every year asking 0 times and sitting here pulling my hair out again. I'm not sure the problem here is in this room, and I think that's kind of partially what you're alluding to too, is that there's got to be other partners, but there's got to be an ask, and there's got to be a desire to put energy into this.
Well, with the
I
economy the way it is,
think-
they might be more open to it than they have been.
I think, and I will address this from when we had a merger a number of years ago, I think cities are afraid to lose their identity.
That's
Once
it.
they start combining services, then eventually Mission, Roland Park, Westwood Hills, Fairway, they end up becoming the city of Northeast Johnson County, or the city of Shawnee Mission, back in the day. There's a lot of reluctance from a lot of people in cities about losing their identity.
And I think Will's right. I think it's more emotional
It is.
than it is an objective exercise.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Will, and I have very little desire to take on that emotional adaptive challenge right now, because I am not sure we could overcome that. But where we stand now, where our budget numbers stand for the city of Mission, and where I have no doubt that every other city in the Northeast budget numbers are sitting, is that if we don't find ways to share services, our identities will be taken from us by default. We will be losing the very thing we're trying to protect. And so I agree with you, historically, the identity issue has been a challenge, but we need to find a way to get over that and realize that this is a way to protect our identities, not to take them away.
And it also becomes once collaboration and combining of services starts to happen, then, and I'm sure everybody knows this, I'm just kind of saying it because it's the big elephant in the room. Each city's going to say, well, our chief of police is better than your chief of police. And then it becomes a rift and a battle as to who gets their chief as the chief.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody wants to, go over to Roland Park and say, your chief really doesn't have that much info on ours. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, it's an extremely difficult discussion to have.
And I think that the best way to overcome the emotions is to get people to look at what we have in place that actually has worked well for a long time. And what people forget is that Consolidated Fire District Number 2 used to not be made up of the cities that it's made up of. And that over time, it added cities and it added property.
And done it well.
And did it well. And I would almost argue, if we could all agree that that model has worked, then it certainly could work with police. And it's the thing that I've argued at ICMA, especially around first-tier suburbs that are in the United States, they're all facing the same issue. I mean, it all looks the same. It's not a whole lot different. And my argument is this. When you call 911, you don't know where that operator is. If you ask a Mission resident when they call 911 where that phone is being answered, more than likely they would argue right over there. And it's not.
Could be in India.
It could
Well,
be.
not in India.